Greetings, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the weekly Mormon News Roundup. I am your humble host, Steve Ace. That is talent on loan from Clout. It is September 14th, 2025. We will be ruminating on the great and spacious beehive. So thanks so much for joining us to discuss the contemporary as issues in Mormonism. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., from the crossroads of the East. But before we get started, I would like to welcome onto my program my fabulous co-host, Jesse. Jesse, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Now, who are you and what are you all about?
Well, my name is Jesse Frankel. I'm a German ex-Mormon, live in Texas for more than 10 years. Finally, this year became a U.S. citizen. We have 4 kids, so I'm a typically still out of Mormonism, but still a stay-at-home mom. And we lived on different continents in the world, and I'm just happy to enjoy life now.
Well, great to have you on the program. We've got a very serious topic on our hand here, and that's the Charlie Kirk murder. This was an absolute tragedy that happened this week. We're going to be talking all about the assassination, all about this event. This event rocked Utah. It also rocked the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There was a number of reactions that went along with this, both from Mormons, ex-Mormons, and non-Mormons. What is your first initial thought here, Jesse, to this tragic murder of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University just a couple of days ago?
Obviously, I'm against gun violence. I am against killing people. That can't be the solution. It was disturbing to watch. I don't think I have ever watched something like this. But there's so many factors that are in a way shocking, that it came from Utah. It was at the university, that he actually got shot and killed. In the first seconds, I would say I still thought there was hope. But and then the influence of the Mormon Church, that's their state. So it's definitely an interesting topic all around.
It definitely is. Now, I taught at Utah Valley University actually for a couple of years. That's this right behind me. I taught right here in this building, right here on the 5th floor. This is my campus. I actually taught at UVU before it was UVU, when it was Utah Valley State College. And then I also taught at UVU as well. So I'm very familiar with that. And we're going to be talking about the killer here today, Tyler Robinson. He should be denounced hardly. What do we know about him? He was arrested on charges of aggravated murder and obstruction of justice for moving and hiding the gun believed to be used for Charlie Kirk's assassination, and felony discharge of a firearm causing bodily injury. Let's hear from CBS News.
Grew up in southwest Utah, about 4 hours from the site of the shooting. The family spent a lot of time in the outdoors, according to a neighbor, where Robinson became comfortable around guns. A stellar student in high school, Robinson earned a full ride to Utah State University, but only stayed a semester. Neighbor Kristen Schwerman said he was smart, quiet, and respectful.
This is a total shock, because that's not who Tyler was. That's not who Tyler is. And that's what shocks us all, is that if he did this, we think there was something else behind it.
In recent years, according to Utah Governor Spencer Cox, Robinson became increasingly politicized, referencing a recent conversation Robinson had with his family.
Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate.
A police affidavit reviewed by CBS News says the etchings on the casings from the gun included anti-fascist messages like, "Hey, fascist, catch." Robinson was registered to vote, but unaffiliated with any party, and his status was considered inactive, suggesting he might not have voted in the November election. The governor praised Robinson's family today for intervening and urged people to disconnect from social media.
It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community.
Scott, where does this case go next?
As the afternoon concluded Friday, the FBI was executing a search warrant at the family home. We'll see what evidence that brings up that's relevant to the court case that is to follow. The prosecutor in Utah speaks on Tuesday. They've already booked him on 3 charges, including murder. And John and Maurice, the feds could add charges too, and law enforcement sources tell me it is certain they will seek pretrial detention.
Scott, so much to be concerned about. What else are your law enforcement sources concerned about tonight?
Those etchings on the shell casings with messages on them, not the first time that's happened. We've seen that before, and there's concern about copycats and that this could be some type of signature that would-be attackers are trying to put on their shootings.
Scott McFarlane in Washington for us. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, a quick question here for you, Jesse. When I think of mass shootings, unfortunately, they are far too common in the United States. When I think about Columbine, there was a lot of warning signals for Columbine. Those two killers were really quite deranged. When I think about Adam Lanza, who did Sandy Hook, there was also a lot of signs, but people are saying that there was virtually no signs for Tyler Robinson. What made this one different?
I mean, the question is, though, did it make it different? Because when I hear like the neighbor saying he was a good kid, he was smart, they're shocking, he was nice, to me, it always comes to mind that every neighbor of a serial killer, and I'm not saying he's one, but says that they were nice, they were polite, they were intelligent. So why are we still shocked? Like, I feel like we still wanting this monster, this ugly, disgusting person to be our villain and not in the midst of us. And I think this way, it's kind of interesting that they're still shocked. And then there is violence in Mormonism per se, in its upbringing, in messaging. So are we shocked?
Yeah, I am personally very surprised. You know, I taught at UVU for a long time, didn't see this one coming. I always thought it's Happy Valley. I never felt myself like I was unsafe when I was at UVU, when I was teaching. These are really generally very, very good people. A lot of Latter-day Saints on campus, typically a low crime rate. So this maybe is more shocking there than it is at some other campuses, which are more party schools or have people who are, I don't know, a little bit more rough around the edges. So that maybe made it a little bit more shocking. And everybody is wondering, because this happened in Utah, and the killer here, the Robinsons, are from Utah and has a high preponderance of Latter-day Saints. People are wondering, hey, is Tyler, what is this family LDS? And when you go back and look at their Facebook, what do you see here, Jesse, on their Facebook profile?
Well, I'm here to light the world. That's an absolute popular LDS, Mormon, whatever hashtag. I mean, nobody does this if you don't belong to this religion. That to me is just a marker.
Very unlikely for someone to have the hashtag light the world, which is specific to the LDS Church, that happens around, notice, November timeframe. This is in the holidays. You're counseled from Russell Nelson to use this hashtag to, you know, to put forth Mormonism as a Christian religion. And this is from Mrs. Robinson, his mother, and we've redacted some of the faces here, but there you see a typical, what looks to be a typical LDS family using that hashtag. It's not a smoking gun, but it is certainly a good amount of evidence that this is at least raised the LDS, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, even I just noticed this when you asked me, they have matching colors, which Mormons like to do, kind of matching outfits. I mean, if you see a picture of a family who's wearing like cross necklaces, you would also go into the direction and assuming the Christians most likely. So if they have this hashtag, they like doing this kind of matching outfit things, then I think it's absolutely okay to assume they're Mormons. Doesn't mean we know exactly if they're conservatives, if they go every Sunday. We're not saying that.
Yeah, Rio, welcome to the program. Those of you out in the live chat, thank you so much for joining us. And when you look on some of their other pictures from the inside of their Facebook, which my understanding is they deleted some of these Facebook posts that go back, you would see up on their walls pictures of the quote unquote Mormon Jesus on the wall, which has a very distinctive kind of Nordic look. You can tell it if you're a Latter-day Saint. You can tell what these pictures, they're officially produced pictures, look like. You buy them in Deseret Book, and on the walls you would also see the living Christ up on their walls as well. How many people are going to have a living Christ on the wall, Jesse, who are not Latter-day Saints?
I don't think anyone, and even I would say not even all Latter-day Saints. That to me speaks more to they're really into the Mormon community, because the only thing I know is like a lot of Mormons like to have the temple on the wall or the family proclamation. But this to me is even a step further. I don't think all Mormons have the living Christ on the wall. So definitely I would say if we're looking for cues, that's one.
Yeah, I would definitely say that I didn't see pictures of the temple, which is more common, and I didn't see the family proclamation, but I did see those other two. And this is what the so-called mainstream media is reporting here. Exclusive: Tyler Robinson was raised Latter-day Saint and killed Charlie Kirk moments after Charlie Kirk praised the LDS Church. In fact, this is what Charlie said just a few moments before he was killed. I love how Mormons send missionaries around the world. I love how polite they are. Half my team is Mormon, Kirk said to cheers from the Utah crowd. And I do have that clip here. This is Charlie Kirk's last words, love for missionaries and love for the LDS Church. Let's just watch this. This is not graphic here, but let's hear him.
Right there. Let me just continue. I love how Mormons send missionaries around the world. I love how polite you are. I have my team is Mormon. Terrell's a Mormon. Andrew's a Mormon. Mormons are great. So everything I say, everybody, I'm an evangelical Christian. We're going to have fun with this, but I'm not one of those guys that hates on Mormons.
So he said this, Jesse, just moments before he was shot by someone who was raised Mormon. Is that a coincidence?
I mean, that's the big question, right? On the one hand, I would say Charlie Kirk knew how to work a crowd. And he knew exactly where he was, right? He knew he was in Utah. And as he at least claimed, he had a couple of Mormons who were working for him. So I might have done the same thing. So I'm not sure if I should read too much into it or not. And again, we don't know what the shooter maybe thinks about his upbringing either, but it is an interesting timing, let's say it this way.
Definitely interesting timing, to be sure. And I can't help but see that there might be some connection. Obviously, this is speculation. Charlie Kirk was one of those evangelical Christians, like he said, who didn't point a finger in the face of Mormonism. See, a lot of evangelical Christians say that Mormons aren't Christians. They say that they're deceived by the devil and that Mormonism will lead you off of the straight and narrow path and that Mormons are really the spawn of Satan. Charlie Kirk was always very deferential to Mormonism in general. He seemed to have a good affinity. Like he said, he was around Latter-day Saints. I believe his wife is from Arizona. He was surrounded by Latter-day Saints and he had a good affinity for them. And that's going to weigh in later to how the church treats Charlie Kirk too. Even though Charlie Kirk is really a provocateur, he generally, I've never heard him say anything negative about Latter-day Saints in general. And that's why, as we're going to discuss later, that's how I think that there is a bond or a connection that is always not necessarily with all evangelical Christians. Mormons often have a very prickly relationship with other Christians, but Charlie Kirk seems to be one of, like a Mormon adjacent. Am I reading too much into that?
No, I think I feel like it's like a cousin relationship. You know what I mean? Like, because he's nice and he's polite towards Mormons and let's say even a little bit complimenting them. I think we as Mormons are suckers for that. If somebody says something nice about us, we latch onto it. Like, oh, this person is interested. This person is like nice to me. And he must be interested, instead of, well, somebody's just saying something nice. So I think it's kind of like this Christian cousin relationship. He's nice. He's good to us. So therefore we're nice and good to him.
Yeah. Now, Robinson here, his father here, apparently was the one who helped turn him in along with his roommate. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as well here. But it's reported that Robinson's father declined the $100,000 of reward money offered, providing information that led to Robinson's arrest. That is very surprising to me, but I'm certainly glad that Troy's roommate and his father did the right thing and encouraged him to turn him in. I guess his father drove him to the sheriff's department and the roommate turned over the text messages. They are cooperating, whereas Troy is not cooperating. So I'm glad to see that he was turned in. I do find it interesting that they're not taking any reward money. That's interesting to me. Now, we have a couple of faithful, quote unquote, faithful reactions to this as well here from Kristen Walker-Smith, a big time Mormon influencer. She's going to opine about the shooting. Recent news articles are reporting that the man who killed Charlie Kirk was a Latter-day Saint. And she's going to ask the question here, does the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints encourage violence? So let's find out what she has to say.
These articles are reporting that the man who killed Charlie Kirk was raised a member of the Mormon Church, also known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As an active member of this church, I wanted to address what might become a misconception among people who do misunderstand our church, and that is that the church condones violence or that it creates violent people. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints believe the Bible to be true, as well as the Book of Mormon. You can see here in this passage from the Book of Mormon, it is a repetition of what the Lord said in the Sermon on the Mount about killing, that not only should we not kill, we shouldn't even be angry. Not only do the ancient scriptures that members of the church believe in encourage them not to be angry or to kill, but this is a more modern day scripture. This is from the time of Joseph Smith that once again urges us not to be violent, not to kill. And even more recently, in 2023, the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Russell M. Nelson, encouraged all members of the church to do what? To be peacemakers. So does the Mormon church encourage people or create people who are violent? Absolutely not. I don't know what was going on with this young man, but it is not part of the LDS Church's doctrine. Recent news article.
Okay. Let me ask you the same question here, Jesse. Does the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints encourage violence?
I would say it's hard for an active member. If I put my head on, like what I would say a couple years ago, I would have said this woman, right? I don't feel like I was in some boot camp and ready any second to, pop off and do some violent crime. Obviously not. I don't think we all are claiming this, but there is a huge but. The more I learned while deconstructing my faith, I learned how much violence was in our becoming of our religion. And even into the modern times, I mean, all around the world, or at least in the Western world, people are aware of the Daybell and Bell, or whatever their name was, case, right? They killed their children. They were both super active. We know that they went to a temple. So that super active Mormons killed their children. And then we have Jody Hildebrand and Ruby Franke. I mean, they didn't kill them, but they really, really abused their children physically and mentally. So there is something in the water of Mormonism. And then we have Elder Holland, who is an apostle. So that's one of the highest offices you can have in Mormonism, who, as a address to LGBTQ, talked about musket fire. I mean, how is that not aggressive? How is that not kind of being okay with violence if it means protecting us, if it means protecting our ideas? And I think there is some danger and a silver lining in it.
Yeah, what I would say is theism in general really postulates the idea that God could tell you to harm another person. And all you have to do is open up the Old Testament and you'll see that God supposedly commanded the slaughter of the Amalekites, supposedly commanded the slaughter of the Midianites. God supposedly told people to grape other people and even to commit human sacrifice. If you read the first chapters of the Book of Mormon, it says that Nephi was justified and told by God to kill a defenseless, unarmed person. Once you open up the idea, once you set up a framework where an imaginary voice in your head can tell you to harm another person or even kill another person, that makes it possible for a shooter like this to feel that they're justified. Now, I have no idea if he thought that he was on a mission from God, but any God paradigm where your God can tell you to kill another person, that's harmful to begin with. And virtually every religion that I'm familiar with has that kind of a mindset. So that's it's deeply disturbing in my mind. Now, this is what we get here. And this is one reason we're going to talk about the church's statement here. Meridian Magazine weighed in here. See, this is why I think that this really hit as close to home, is because Charlie Kirk's murder was close to home. Church headquarters is just a few miles up the road here, and BYU is also close by. See, gone is the illusion that senseless and horrific violence happens only in those other places, somewhere distant and far away. Do you think, and we're going to get to the church's statement, why do you think that this had such a visceral reaction in Utah, since there is other gun violence in Utah? There's school shootings, unfortunately, and other violence of sorts. Why did the church decide to get so heavily involved with this by issuing a statement, which we're going to cover in a moment?
Because they want to keep up their bubble, right? I mean, I lived really far away from Utah in Germany, and yet my upbringing, my Mormon upbringing, taught me to create this bubble of not letting bad press in, or informations can't be true. Mormons are only upright citizens. We don't do harm. We good husbands, we good wives, we good mothers and fathers. We don't do harm. And that's really, I feel, one of the most disturbing aspects of Mormonism, is that the church always wants to make sure to protect their own name. That's their one goal: protect the name of the church, and unfortunately, no matter what.
Yeah, I follow this account here over on X at J. Kimball Cook, and I think he's a faithful Latter-day Saint. He has some pretty good takes here, and this is what I found to be highly disturbing here, because Spencer Cox, the current governor of Utah, is an active Latter-day Saint, to my understanding here, and this is what he said. For the last 33 hours, I had been praying that this person who murdered Charlie Kirk was from another country. that was not one of that he would not be one of us because we are not like that, but it was one of us. And Jared said, I think Cox has actually been pretty good overall in this, but praying that the shooter would turn out to be an immigrant is a strange thing to say. Let's hear that statement here from Governor Cox.
This bad stuff happens. And for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us, that somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here.
See, the question I have for you is, why is Governor Cox praying that this will be someone other than quote unquote us? Who, first of all, who does he mean by us? And why is he praying that this murder happened from an immigrant?
That is a good question. I was first confused and then I was disturbed. The question is, then who was he praying for that it would be? Are we just talking somebody from Colorado? But then he even went by himself to maybe even a different country. So then we are in the water of immigrants. But the other thing is, why was he not praying for, please make that everybody else is safe? Please make that we overcome this. And then also this whole like special place. Why is Utah that special place? I feel like everybody thinks this about their home, right? If you're from Washington, then Washington is your special home. If I'm from Germany, maybe then Germany is the special home. The whole thing with the specialness of Utah, there's too much Mormonism bleeding through for me. And that's the other thing. Does he also mean by one of us, one of my religious community? Or
really
just
think so.
a Utah?
A good question. Probably a little bit of all of the above. What it turned out, see, the initial reports on this, by the way, a lot of people were saying that it was a transgender shooter because of the bullet casings and other things. Those turned out to be wrong. Well, and a lot of people on the right, even President Trump was saying this was a deranged left-wing lunatic. Well, guess what? Charlie Kirk shooter turned out to be a white male who donated to President Trump's presidential campaign. He was not a Democrat. He was not a liberal. This is the Trump Make America Great Again here. This is his receipt here. I guess he donated, I want to say $224.48 here. This wasn't a transgender person. This wasn't an immigrant. This wasn't a left-wing psychopath. This was literally someone from within MAGA. That was a big surprise to everybody.
Yes, and the other thing is, like, I almost wish, and I know other people do so too, even if, let's pretend for just a second, he would have been a Democrat, should we not just hate and be against killers? That's the group they're in. In a way, it's more like, see, it's again, not a Democrat, not a crazy liberal, but it's almost like, what's the point anyways? Like, can we talk about why do we have those people in our midst? Why do they think gun is the solution? Why do they think it's okay to take other people's life? That's why it's so disturbing, why they're still hammering on this liberal, Republican, whatever. I mean, it's really just like, no, there's some disturbing people out there.
Yeah, everybody is desperate to make this be someone who's not in our camp. Spencer Cox doesn't want it to be a Mormon, doesn't want it to be a Utah. The Democrats want it to be a Republican. The Republican want it to be a Democrat. Everybody wants to make it so that the other people are the psychopaths. Our discourse is really broken down here. And a prime example of that was Elder TikTok here, who's a very famous influencer on TikTok. He's got like 500,000 followers. And he released a very disturbing TikTok that went along with this. He was at the actual shooting, and Mackenzie Vance, who's an ex-Mormon, is going to react to this now deleted TikTok video that is highly bizarre. Let's watch. Let's cue this up here.
You guys know about fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? The trauma responses. Well, a new one just dropped, and it's whatever the fuck this guy did.
It's your boy out on TikTok. There was just a gunshot at Charlie Kirk. We're in Utah. There's a gunfire. This is not a joke. Hey, let's go. Hey, let's go. Hey, let's go. It's your boy Elder TikTok. There was just a gunfire in Utah. This is not a drill. There is a gunfire in Utah. Shots fired here in Utah. This is not a joke. Charlie Kirk, Elder TikTok, Mormon Central, Utah. There was a gun that just fired off here at Charlie Kirk. I am not playing with y'all. Hey, make sure you go to church on Sunday. Read the Book of Mormon. This is not a drill. I'm not playing with y'all. Hey, Jesus is Lord. Jesus will protect you. Jesus is your savior, but I'm not even lying. Make sure you subscribe to Elder TikTok on Instagram.
The name he goes by on social media is Elder TikTok. I'm not quite sure what his actual name is. He is a Mormon content creator. He did end up taking it down and issuing an apology, which you can look up. His apology was essentially that he is young and that he was in shock. Oh, I think we all know you were in shock. I just think that shock restored your body to its natural factory settings of being like, me, must rage bait, must create content. There is also footage of him pushing his camera in the face of the first suspect that they arrested and taking hats from the merch table after everyone has dispersed.
What?
Survival instincts are zero. It is crazy how Clout is above his own life. That is the definition of Clout demon. And I'm not going to let this video die, because this isn't the first time he has done stuff like this. He is a known controversial rage baiter. I have stitched him before. It now kind of all makes sense to me. He just doesn't care. He doesn't care. He was a fan of Charlie Kirk. He liked him. Imagine his reaction if he wasn't a fan of whoever that was. No, this has nothing to do with Mormonism and everything to do with that he is a huge piece of shit.
Wow. So Clout Shark, I think that's a pretty good sum up there, Jesse. How do you feel about Mackenzie's takedown of Elder TikTok and his bizarre actions minutes
you don't know
after?
about the vaults?
Sorry, minutes after.
I think she's spot on, but I would not push away so fast. This has nothing to do with Mormonism, because if you really, and I'm not saying, I truly believe those people were traumatized. I truly believe they were in fear and maybe froze, and some were just running. But if you traumatized, and apparently he's so young, but he's not 18, 19, let's be real. He went on a mission, so he's over 20. And then the thing that shoots in your mind is telling people to read the Book of Mormon. I'm sorry, this is disturbing. It's sick. It's absolutely the wrong place. And okay, he showed it by taking it down, but I wonder if he actually took it down because he came to the conclusion, or if he had too much bad press, so to speak, and therefore he took it down.
Good question. Hey, I'd like to welcome Earth Lair to the program. Great to see you. And also Peyton Webster. It's nice to see you. Yes, we're told that Jesus will protect you minutes after Jesus did not protect Charlie Kirk. So I find that message to be quite hollow here. Go to church and read the Book of Mormon while you're smiling after someone was just assassinated in brutal fashion, in very graphic detail, right before your eyes, and then swiping merchandise. This is all for clicks here, so he can get a few extra followers on TikTok. Absolutely reprehensible. Mackenzie took him down, and I appreciate how she did that. Now let's take a snapshot here back to Tyler Robinson here when he was opening up a notice of a scholarship here, and Mitch Summers posted this and asks, "What do you notice?" This is let's get a little bit more into the mind here of Mr. Robinson, a brother Robinson here. Of course.
Congratulations. You have been selected to receive the Resident Presidential Scholarship from Utah State University. The value of this scholarship is approximately $32,000. This scholarship is available for 4 years or 8 semesters.
What do you notice in that video?
What do you notice in that video there? What do you get from that, Jesse?
I mean, that's the funny thing. He really, this person who posted it, right, didn't make any other comments. So I don't know why he posted this or why he's asking, what do we notice? And I actually scrolled through the comment section quite a bit, and I couldn't find anyone connecting it to Mormonism or anything. They were more talking about, like, he seems a little detached. He seems maybe on the autistic spectrum. And I don't want to say anything to that because I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I can't say anything to that. But to me, coming from a Mormon background, this seemed like, I mean, I had a son who went on a mission. That's when you open your mission papers, like standing there, your family's recording, and then this yoo-hoo. I'm not sure if it was more like, I'm not going on a mission, but I have this, or was it a mockery? I really can't tell. It is odd, that's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it kind of does remind me of the opening up the missionary papers. And I don't believe, although there is some speculation as to whether Tyler went on a mission, I do not believe that he did. But this is kind of a replacement for this. But it also shows how he's a very smart individual. He got a big time 4-year, it was some kind of a presidential scholarship to Utah State University. He only ended up attending there for 1 semester, and then he withdrew and then went down to Utah Technical University in Southern Utah, formerly Dixie College. But he seems like a very intelligent and smart person who's able to get that kind of a scholarship. This isn't some basement dweller who was neglected and who everybody, he was bullied, or he was not attractive. And, this was a very Mormon type, very handsome, very smart, very privileged from my perspective. His family seemed to have a nice home, a very privileged person who was also at one point in time a big time Trump supporter. This is like the last person I would have thought could he doesn't seem to have any military training, any law enforcement training, although he has some background in guns. This would be like the last person I would suspect would do something like this. That's why I think it is such a big shock.
It is. It's definitely a shock. And I mean, even the comment that you had, right, where the dad said didn't take the money, seems like to me an honorable thing to do, that he was like, no, I talked with my son down. I came here to be honest. Like, we know it's him. So to your point, it seems like it's a decent family. I mean, for my taste, they're too much into guns, but that could also be just me being German. I don't know. It's not my thing. But yeah, I mean, definitely no red flags per se, I would say. But then there is the Mormon aspect.
Yeah, let's that's a good point here. And this is from the Mormonish podcast. Rebecca, we're going to be covering some of her reactions to this. The LA Times says that the Robinson family does indeed attend, in the present tense, LDS Church, and the father called an LDS bishop to report the incident. And that's what President Trump referenced when he was talking about a minister was involved. Well, people outside of Utah would call bishops ministers. Well, they're called bishops in Utah. See, Tyler Robinson, he grew up in a quiet, close-knit community in Washington, Utah, where most of the members of his neighbors attended the same ward and church. They knew each other's first and last names. The Robinsons, his parents, his 2 brothers, all attended the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints less than a mile away. And this is according to the LA Times here. Tyler Robinson's father, Matt, came to realize his son was the focus of a desperate manhunt as images of him in a long-sleeve t-shirt and jeans began flashing across the television and computer screens nationwide. The family called their church bishop, also a neighbor, when Robinson threatened to take his own life, according to law enforcement source who was not authorized to discuss the investigation. It's interesting to me when I'm reading through this, Jesse, that the first call that this family made was not to law enforcement, but to a Mormon church bishop. That's very par for the course, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it reminds us of something, right? I mean, that's the whole child sex abuse cases, like telling bishops to please report, or even parents, like, you don't need your bishop as the middleman in those things. I mean, there's one number only to call. Go to the police. Go to places that can help you. But we as Mormons know as best our bishops are not prepped for that. So I don't still understand the need of Mormons to go to the bishop. I know there are other religions who do exactly the same. If you think of the Duggar family, right? Where did they went when they knew their son were molesting their sisters? Same thing to whatever their clergy person is. And that's the really tricky and disturbing part in religion, that there is always this middleman between law and police and then church. The church should only be responsible for your spiritual well-being. That's it.
Great point. Now, the church did weigh into this here. This was just a couple of days ago here on September 11th here. By the way, 9/11 commemoration here. The church has issued a statement following the shooting of American political commentator Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. And let's hear from that church.
Church News Today this Thursday, September 11th. The church has issued a statement following the shooting of American political commentator Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. The church statement said, "Our prayers go out to his family at this time. We condemn violence and lawless behavior. We also pray that we may treat one another with greater kindness, compassion, and goodness. For members of the church, we reaffirm that the Savior's teaching and admonition is to love our neighbor." Thousands.
Okay, so how do you feel about, that's a pretty brief statement here, but how do you feel about the church's statement?
Well, it's, on the one hand, I could say, and I saw that reasoning quite a bit, it wasn't their backyard, it is Utah. On the other hand, they're claiming they're a worldwide church, so why does it matter so much it's Utah? But then on the other hand, I didn't hear anything like this when the senators in Minnesota were shot. But also, it's sometimes almost petty or hilarious what they're comment to and what not. Because I remember not too long ago, they were even commenting on the trash TV show, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So you comment to that, and then somebody, political people, senators in Minnesota get crudely shot, and then who was it, Cox or the other senator, awfully comment, and then here almost we have a saint who got killed. It's just bizarre.
Well, I guess if you say nice things about Mormonism, then you get a good statement. But if you're a Democrat, apparently you do not. So it's odd. It's very capricious as to when the church weighs in on this, because there's been, unfortunately, church shootings, not church shootings, but school shootings in Utah that the church did not issue any statements. You talked about like Paul Pelosi when the house was broken into, or a number of Democratic lawmakers who unfortunately have been gunned down in cold blood recently. The church was completely silent about this. But I guess if Charlie Kirk says that he likes Mormonism, then he gets a statement. I find that to be highly ironic and awfully weird, if you ask me here. And Rebecca Biblioteca is going to weigh in on this church statement here. Let's see what she has to say about the church's statement.
So I'm here in Utah County. Some members of my immediate family were on campus, actually in the building right next to where they determined that the shooter was. Charlie Kirk has been killed. We can't even believe this is happening in Utah County at Utah Valley University. The church has put out a statement. It says, "It is with great sadness that we learn of the shooting that took place at Utah Valley University, resulting in the death of Charlie Kirk. Our prayers go out to his family at this time. We condemn violence and lawless behavior. We also pray that we may treat one another with greater kindness, compassion, and goodness. For members of the church, we reaffirm that the Savior's teachings and admonitions in love our neighbor." Everybody is just rocked to the core, especially since we don't know who the shooter is or exactly what's happening at this point here in Utah County.
See, what I find also, and you pointed this out to me here, Jesse, is the fact that the church statement doesn't actually name Charlie Kirk in the statement. It's kind of like they wanted to have solidarity, but they didn't want to make it political. Is that what you're getting from it?
Yeah, that, and also that Cox didn't mention that the shooter was a killer, right? That he was just praying it's not one of us and not even specifying who is one of us. This all seems like they're all hiding to address the real issue here.
Yeah. And Jasmine over there at Scripture, formerly at Scripture Central, my favorite page shill for the Mormon Corporation here, is going to weigh in on the church's statement here. She said, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, the church made a statement condemning the violence. Why did the church comment on this political tragedy when they stayed silent on others? This is the $1 million question here. Let's see if Jasmine has the answer that everyone seems to be looking for.
Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints swiftly made a statement condemning the violence. Why did the church comment on this political tragedy when it stayed silent about so many others? Is this politics, or is this something deeper? To find out, I went through every single official church statement from the last 5 years, and the pattern I discovered was revealing. Since most of the newsroom is about church announcements, it is actually really rare for the church to make official statements on political issues or tragedies. And even more so when you take into account that most of the tragedy statements are actually coming from local authorities that get reposted, not the global church headquarters themselves. From what I can tell out of the hundreds of articles, church headquarters has made only about a dozen statements on politics or tragedies in the last 5 years. And they're on things like the church's position on things like immigration, abortion, political neutrality, or the death of a missionary in the field. In other words, things that are directly relevant to the church. And in this case, I think it is demonstrable that this particular tragedy has a greater connection to the church. This highly publicized crime was committed in the church's backyard of Utah. The church is part of this national story, whether they wanted to be or not. So I think it makes sense for them to unequivocally communicate that murder does not represent the values of the Church of Jesus Christ, no matter who the victim or the perpetrator is. And leaders likely were concerned for the high concentration of church members in the state that may have been affected by yesterday's events. So no, I don't think this is an instance of partisan favoritism. This is the church messaging their position on an event that has direct bearing on them. And this statement is instructing members on what to do next in this highly charged environment. Love your neighbor.
Notice, Jesse, that one thing that she doesn't ever mention in this statement was the fact that the shooter is either raised a Latter-day Saint or still was a Latter-day Saint or was an ex-Mormon. She doesn't want to mention that at all.
Exactly. And here's the other kind of interesting part and hypocritical on their side is always like, now he's not active enough, right? Maybe he's not an active member. But then you, the church, still like to talk about their 17 million members worldwide, but we all know it's at best 20%. So 80% are inactive. But you love to present, to tell the world how big you are. But as soon as it doesn't fit your little bubble, then they're like, oh, they didn't go to church every Sunday, so therefore they're not Mormons. No, they are.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. If you want to claim him on the rolls, then you need to take responsibility for his actions. Now, here is, I really like this particular take here about how this seems to be a blatant support of Charlie Kirk, who's an extreme far-right activist. I can't help but notice that Mormonism in generally is pretty far right. I mean, it's not way out there, but it is definitely on the right side of things. And I can't help but but observe that when a right-wing commentator gets killed, then he gets a statement. But when Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota are killed just a little while ago, no statement is issued. That seems to be a contradiction.
Yep.
I need to get off the internet because I'm about to crash the fuck out. Because as someone that was raised Mormon, someone that grew up Mormon, went on a mission, paid her tithing, like literally all the things, like went through the temple, all the things, okay? The church newsroom page, an official church page, just posted about Charlie Kirk. They were saying something like, oh, like we, like thoughts and prayers with his family, blah, blah, blah. Like a reminder that the teachings of Christ are to love our neighbor. Like we don't want violence, blah, blah, blah. Like, hello? Where the fuck have you been? Where was this with Melissa Hortman? Where was this energy? Where was this energy with the ICE raids? And some people in the comments are like defending like, oh, well, it's because it happened in Utah, not in Minnesota. Like, okay, what about all the ICE raids tearing families apart? Like, it doesn't matter because they're brown? Like, okay. What about Alpha Alu? He was unalived down the street from the temple. So like, what, he doesn't matter because he was also brown and he was a right extreme like activist? I'm gonna crush out the church. It pisses me off.
Yeah, I definitely see where she's coming from. I just want to weigh in on one comment here and highlight this. Hey, Bob, welcome to the program, longtime viewer. My perspective, according to Bob, is that the shooter was struggling with mental health issues because of the toxic environment that the LDS Church created. It's not left versus right. It's Mormonism. It's that Mormonism created abuse. And I guess the real $1 million question, Jesse, is how much is Mormonism to blame for this shooting? That's what everybody is really trying to get at. And can you give us your take on that?
It's a hard nut to crack. I mean, I agree with that person that definitely a lot of kids or growing up in Mormonism, there is a mental struggle in the way of, black and white thinking. Shaming yourself sometimes to the ground. Then you have a lot of OCD religious people. I mean, high demand religion, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Really can damage, especially young people. So do I know that was part of his issue? No. Can I see that? Yes. But to say Mormonism has no part is being like blind. Is like the only thing, like I said, how I can explain it is like you want to live in your bubble. You don't want to own your privilege. You don't want to see that, oh, you know what? I mean, that's the Christian thing. You should say, shoot, we have a part in this. We need to actually reflect. We need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, like, what is our part in it? That to me would be Christ-like, to ask yourself, did we play a part in it? But all they're doing is shove it away. No, that's not us. No. We only want the good stuff. If it's good, it's us. If it's bad, no, then it wasn't us. Then it must be an ex-Mormon, right? It's just so pathetic to me and not Christ-like at all.
and literally praying, instead of praying for the family or praying that this won't happen again, literally praying that, let's pray that it was somebody else and not one of my tribe, as if that is some kind of a good thing to do. Renee Steelman also weighs in on this, and she says, she runs the She Became Visible podcast, by the way, which is a really great feminist podcast,
Yes.
by the way. And she talks about, can we at least mourn together here? Let's hear what she has to say about this one here. Can't get the volume going here.
11th, 2001. The nation held its breath as towers fell, smoke rose, and we watched in horror. But what remains etched in me is not just the fear, it's the unity, the prayer, the shared grief. Flags went up, strangers comforted each other. We were simply Americans. That same impulse had carried me through other tragedies. I was in my 4th grade classroom when President John F. Kennedy was shot. Our teacher's face went blank. The room fell silent. Later, I watched RFK Jr. and Martin Luther King Jr. die. Voices were gone, hopes dimmed. Then came John Lennon, taken on a cold night as I decorated the Christmas tree. In each case, the country grieved together. We mourned the person. We blamed the criminal. We did not blame entire tribes, politics, or religions. True sorrow was universal. But now I watch with a heavy heart as some things that once seemed impossible are now painfully common. In 2025, 8 school shootings already have left children or school staff injured or dead. At least 29 children and school people have died, and 69 more injured in incidents of gunfire on school grounds this year. One of the most horrific on August 27th in Minneapolis at the Annunciation Catholic School. 2 small children, maybe 8 and 10, were killed during school mass. In Colorado, Evergreen High School became another site of violence. A student shot 2 classmates, then turned the gun on himself. I have grandchildren now, and they go to school. I see the Catholic children praying at school. I see children, students in Texas, in Colorado, in town after town. They should be safe. They should only be thinking about math, art, friends, not locking doors or wondering if today will bring gunfire. And then there's the violence against political figures or public voices. Just yesterday, Charlie Kirk was killed during a speech at Utah Valley University, a public event. The leader of the state called it a political assassination. Then there was the attack on Minnesota legislators and their families. What I see and what I wonder, what's happening to the way we respond? Increasingly, children dying in schools is met with thoughts and prayers, media reports, outrage for a day, and then silence. No sustained national mourning or flags lowered. Violence against public figures is becoming politicized in ways it hadn't been before. People blaming tribe versus tribe. The response is immediate. Often more facts haven't even come out yet. We seem to be splintered, praying in separate corners, speaking in separate news feeds, seeing others as dangers rather than fellow mourners.
That's a very good sentiment, which also brings me back to the church's statement, by the way, which didn't have any pathway forward, by the way. The church's statement said, oh, gee, this is too bad. But it wasn't like, hey, this is what God wants us to do to solve this problem. This is how we're going to get to the bottom of this. And we're going to use our priesthood discernment and our priesthood power to lead the world in this issue. The church is not leading here. And it's caused, all of these gun shootings, as we've already talked about, in schools, in legislators, Charlie Kirk, all of this is really fracturing our entire nation here. And we can't even seem to have a mourning cycle here because we go from week to week with the Colorado shooting, with the Uvalde, with all of these shootings. It just never seems to stop. It's just very discouraging.
Yeah, and I think the other problem, I like how she talked about mourning, because we know people mourn differently. And I think that's the other issue, where now one side wants to tell and force the other to mourn rightfully. So if I'm not in my tears that this person died, then I'm a bad person, instead of maybe listening why some people maybe not as sad. I'm absolutely against anyone celebrating death, but I think that's the rarity. But it's, if you not cry enough, if you don't praise this person enough, therefore you're not mourning. And to her examples with 9/11 and Columbine, it's not even, I would even go opened the circle. It wasn't just Americans mourning. It was the world, or at least the Western world. I remember even in Germany, what I did that day, when it happened, how it impacted me. Columbine, the same, right? Those were big, big events, impactful. And we all saw the humanity. We all saw the pain. And now we struggle. So that's the question. Now, why do we struggle? And to your point, where is really the solution from the church? And why is the church not also acknowledging that there were two sides that were pained? The one side, obviously, who got shot, and nobody's praising that, but also that this person still can be a harmful person. And to the point also, which really frustrates me, just because a person is married or has children, therefore it's untouchable because he's dead. What if he would have been a single person? Then it wouldn't be half bad. Then we don't have to praise him anymore. Then people would have been okay if we just say we didn't thought it was such a great guy. So this is just such a weird setup that, and I'm not saying I feel bad for the children. I feel bad for his wife, but that doesn't, there's true truth. I feel bad for them, but I'm still saying there was some really harmful rhetoric that he had.
He certainly had a lot of very harmful, for sure, but that doesn't justify killing or assassinating someone. We need to leave the discourse. When we have disagreements, we need to have a rational way to solve these discourses, and it's not through violence. But here, Jimmy Snow here, he's a famous ex-Mormon, by the way. He used to be nicknamed Mr. Deity. He now runs a couple of YouTube channels, by the way, here. He says every Mormon knows the following is true. Mormonism and conservatism are inherently violent ideologies. That's what this kid was raised with. In fact, we know that this kid had a lot of access to guns and really spent a lot of time with guns. Even if he left the church behind, which I don't actually know he has, you take much longer to deconstruct from that violent American culture. And I just want to read this tweet that he put out here. I grew up Mormon. This is Jimmy Snow speaking. I'm still on the church's records as a member. You as a Mormon are raised with a scripture-like worship of the Constitution, which Mormons believe was divinely inspired, which comes with a deep devotion of the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Growing up Mormon and conservative, you absolutely absorb the ideas that one day guns will be necessary to fight for your beliefs. Remember, the Constitution is supposed to hang by a thread, right? I don't know his politics now, but I know where he got the idea that guns solve problems, and it wasn't from the left. So Jimmy is saying that conservatism and Mormonism are inherent violent ideologies, because if you read the book of Revelations, the world is supposed to be drenched in blood by the end, and there's supposed to be a literal war between the good people and the demonic forces. Is Jimmy right in his tweet?
I think so, because I think you mentioned it before. If we look into the Book of Mormon, the first story, Laban and killing him, again, that was the solution in Mormonism. It was a drunk person. I mean, if you guys are interested in the story, you need to read the Book of Mormon, I guess. But that was the solution. The solution is killing a man who's knocked out, blacked out, drunk, and you need to chop off the head and get the bloody clothes on you, apparently. I mean, it's the weirdest story in the Book of Mormon. So that's right there. It's there. We grew up with like chopping of arms and Elma. Oh, it's too long for me.
Amulet.
Lots of gruesome story that we kind of make this cool Viking, and then they're strong, masculine men and Helaman, and they're all on their horses. Now it may be tapirs, we don't know, but back then they were all riding on horses. But there's a lot of masculinity, aggressiveness in the Book of Mormon for sure, and justifying death.
There certainly is. There certainly is. Now, I want to cut a couple of more faithful Latter-day Saint tweets out here from Brad Whitback here. I agree that we need peaceful rhetoric. Republicans don't call speech violence. That is uniquely left claim, and it needs to be dropped now. We don't need to know who the shooter is to see all of the lefties celebrating. Do you not understand that they're doing this because they've been conditioned to see anyone on the right as an enemy? Now, I do find this to be rather ironic, considering that Brad Whitback often goes on to the Word Radio show, where they have a lot of very, shall we call it, very masculine type of, it's hard to encapsulate. It's a very masculine and very muscular way of speaking about these things. And it is not at all peaceful rhetoric. They're very aggressive in their denunciations. They call people all kinds of names. And now he's going to lecture us about being a peacemaker. I find that to be highly ironic.
Absolutely. And what I don't like about What Radio too is like they're all those like laughing, making fun of others, where I'm like, and that's the passive aggressiveness in a lot of Mormons, because we officially not allowed to say, you know, bad words like, oh, fuck you, shit, whatever. So then they have to make it in a different way where it's like, okay, but it's the same energy. That's what I liked about the other post too, right? Where the woman was saying, where was your energy? It's not the same energy. And it doesn't matter if you don't use the words or if you don't cuss, you can use the same aggressive energy. And that's what they're doing. And it's not what we need. It's putting oil into the fire. And we need water or a blanket or whatever to really shut this fire down.
Yeah. Also, Jonah Barnes also tweeted this out. Another member of the Word Radio pseudo apologist there. Let us add Tyler Robinson to our prayer list and his parents too. You know, Jesse, should we be praying for Tyler Robinson at this moment? It seems like we have Governor Cox says we be praying that it's not a Mormon. We have Jonah saying that we need to pray for Tyler Robinson. You know, we're always praying. Should we be praying for Tyler Robinson at this moment?
No, I think it's distasteful. I mean, and the other thing is truly, do you pray for every shooter? You pray for the shooter now? I'm sorry. I mean, this is just distasteful at this moment in time for sure. I'm not saying you cannot pray for his family. There could be, as really, let's take it for it, that they didn't know what he was in right now, that he was in this state of mind. Let's give them that grace. So sure, you could pray for his family, but for Tyler Robinson, no, not right now. And it's just like, and do you always do that for people who kill people? You pray for them? I don't think so.
Hard pass. And this is what they're talking about. Charlie Kirk's assassin has been caught here. These are folks who use a very, very, their rhetoric is very hyperbolic. We'll put it that way. Maybe masculine was the wrong word. It's very hyperbolic. It's very in your face. And it is not at all a peacemaking environment. They're going to be talking about how we need to tone our rhetoric down. These are the wrong messengers for this. Now, President Nelson has said that we should be peacemakers, which apparently is perhaps one of his big legacy items. I agree, but I haven't seen President Nelson lead in a way that leads to peace. What I see is bland statements like the one that he put out here through the church's newsroom. I see that his op-ed, which was put out in Time magazine, talked about peace. But as far as actually putting your money where your mouth is and leading in a worldwide way to generate peace, I haven't seen that, and that's the problem here. I just want to cover a couple of comments here as Bob here see. I pray that Tyler Robinson can recover from his mental illnesses and reject his decisions. Seems pretty wise. And Jeff, welcome to the program. Evil invites a person, but the person has to accept it. Temptation is always present. We choose our path. Thanks for joining the program here. Now, I've got a couple more reactions here for you here from one of my favorite accounts out there. This is Uncertainly Carly there over on TikTok. She's going to talk about Carly, about this unfortunate tragedy. Let's hear from her.
So my daughter calls me and tells me about Charlie Kirk being shot on campus at UVU. We live in Utah, not far from this campus. And I'm like kind of in shock. Like, I'm not here to grandstand. I fucking hate the man and most of his opinions. But this is terrifying. This is actually like really scary. And a lot of people witnessed this, first of all, and now have lifelong trauma because of this incident. And maybe because my daughter was at the No Kings protest in Salt Lake earlier this year and also was very close to the shooting that happened. And she was very traumatized. And if Charlie Kirk can be shot for his opinions, like anybody can be killed for having a different opinion, like despite how right or wrong you think it is. This is crazy. This is scary as fuck.
Yeah, a lot of people are really feeling very, very frightened at this time. And I agree with them. In fact, President Trump himself, it was only about a year ago in which he was just... Sorry, it was just a year ago in which he was just inches away from death as well. In fact, there's been two serious assassination attempts on Donald Trump. There's something seriously messed up with our society when this is the way that people are choosing more and more to resolve their concerns. It's you know, how is this to be solved? I mean, is it the guns that are the problem? Is it the people that are the problem? How can we fix this?
I'm pretty sure it's a mix of everything, right? But she actually posted a video afterwards where she was proactive and gave some advice, which I thought was great. But I'm like, where was the church with that? So she told parents, like, get more curious, what your kids are watching. Talk with them what they are seeing. Tell them or teach them critical thinking skills, right? Like, could that be right or could that be wrong? Have you done some research? And I think that's really important. So we need to get more involved. We need to, to me, social media, I think it was right at the beginning, right, where they blamed everything on social media. And to me, it's kind of like social media is like money. It's nothing. It's not good. It's not bad. It depends on how you use it and what you do with it. But her advice was wise and actually proactive. She said, hey, that could be one start. Is that the solution to everything? No, but at least it's something. And I think it's a great advice to say, get curious. Talk with your children, educate them outside of school, outside of their education, sit with them. Great.
It seems like wise advice here. Now, here's pictures here of course, he is now in custody for his role here. Tyler Robinson, age 22. Law enforcement confirms his own father restrained him until the police arrived on the scene. Some people were speculating that his father was a member of law enforcement, but that appears to have been disavowed, and there's no substance to that story as far as I'm concerned here. But you can see that the family here is actually wearing a t-shirt that says holiest of assholes. Now, that doesn't strike me as particularly Mormon, but everybody has their own flavor of Mormonism, I suppose, here. But here's the pictures of Tyler here just a little while ago in Orem, Utah, and they had a very gun culture in this family. There's a lot of pictures with guns. Is there anything wrong here, Jesse, with having your children being exposed to guns at an early age?
I mean, on the one hand, I want to say, living in America and in Texas for over a decade now, I mean, if you teach them gun safety, sure, and how to protect yourself, but do really children that age need to be so exposed and kind of find a love for gun? My humble opinion is it's wrong. We shouldn't. I'm not saying his parents are bad or wrong. Maybe they were taught that way, but there's definitely something that needs to change. But coming back to the t-shirt, because first I thought too, I was like, this is so un-Mormon, but in a way, actually, it's not, because I'm learning more and more how hypocritical Mormonism is as a whole. I mean, when you look to Utah and you look to those shows and then you see women who are dressed, and I really don't care, dress as you want to, but as a Mormon, I was taught you cover your shoulder and you cover your belly. And all those social media influencers, women, they do whatever they want. They're not wearing garments and they drink alcohol, and men too. And they're breaking all those like coffee and whatnot rules that would have been like, a death sentence for me. So we should give them a break too. They're just one of those funny Mormons who maybe go out on Sundays because they want to, and they have a funny, Christmas t-shirt.
Now, it appears from my humble research that the church, that they kind of left Mormonism maybe starting at around 2016, 2017. I don't know that for certain. I'm actually got a little bit more info on that I'm going to give to you just a little bit later. But yes, the jolliest bunch of assholes is awfully weird. It's kind of funny. And here's he dressed up just not that long ago here as Donald Trump here. This is his Halloween costume. He was a big time Trump supporter who donated to the campaign, which of course makes it so much more surprising that he ended up being a psychopath. And here's the pictures of him at Utah Valley University wearing those Converse shoes that became very famous, and they were able to tie those shoes back together using the footprints here. They pretty much have a slam dunk. This looks like a very happy, I don't know if you want to call it Mormon family, but they look, I don't know, they look pretty normal. They're going to baseball games, they're dressing up, they're going to IHOP, the Black Bear Diner. He looks like a normal kid here. What did everybody miss?
I don't know. I mean, that's I think it's deeper than all of us, and it will show. I'm pretty sure the next following weeks we will get more information. But I think if you live in a world, or more like in a mind world, right, where things have to be black and white, and yet there's so much hypocrisy around you. And that's why I think the t-shirt shows Mormon hypocrisy. There's so many things that you think shouldn't exist in Utah, and yet it does, all of it. It's not just some bad apples. There's a huge issue with sex abuse, with domestic violence in Utah, and yet we like to show the research of, Mormons are healthier in Utah. First of all, they're not. They're drinking soda by, liter and liter and liter, and sugar cookies and whatnot. But let's say, even if, most of them don't drink alcohol and they're healthier. But then you look at all the really hard stuff, like You are not good in your state with domestic violence and child abuse. Who cares then that you live 2 years longer when it's miserable?
Now, here's another X account here that I follow here, Stacker here. He tweeted this out. This is a controversial opinion too. My LDS friends, the scriptures show many righteous parents, including God himself, and had unrighteous kids, and unrighteous parents had righteous kids. We believe that men will be punished for their own sins and not for Adam's transgression. Please refrain from judgment on parents. This is my question here. Should we be judging Troy's parents in this situation, or are we supposed to follow what Jesus supposedly said, judge not that ye be not judged?
It's a hard topic since it's not a child. I mean, I don't know how old he is. Is he in his 20s? Is he 19? But he's
22,
living
22.
Yeah, 22. So here you go. He's 22. He lives on his own. Do they have some part maybe in it? But I learned recently, like deconstructing it and everything too, that every parent in some form will abuse their children, right? And I don't mean the abuse that brings you into prison, right? We all do bad things. We mess up. We have a weak day, or it's just what it is. In Mormonism, you kind of have to pretend more we're all better because we read our scriptures in the Book of Mormon and pray. That apparently fixes everything. No, it doesn't, right? So do they play a part in it? Maybe. Do I want to totally fault them for it? No, not either. He's his own person. And there's also this thing in Mormonism where on one hand, you do get judged if all your kids are active in the church, even let's say they're not, but that's Mormonism, right? But then on the other hand, we tell parents, but if they leave, that's not on you either. You cannot win, you cannot lose. It's just weird sometimes in Mormonism.
Hey, Marquita, welcome to the program. She says Mormons are human beings as well. Yes, that is absolutely true. Now, Brittany the Apostate, who I had on the Mormon News Roundup, also weighed in on this horrifically bad shooting. And she was on the Mormon News Roundup about 2 episodes ago. You should really go back and watch that. If you can hit the like and subscribe button while you're at it, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's see what Brittany has to say about this tragedy.
God was at BYU, not UVU, and that's why he couldn't save him that day. UVU is not safe because you were putting yourself around wicked people. And the shooter, what do we know about him? He also had been a student at UVU. And that's why we don't date outside of BYU, right, guys? If you know the one true church, you only date at BYU. It was all in the Lord's hands. If God had wanted him to survive, God would have made it happen. But Charlie died for our sins. He died because of somebody's sins, at least, okay? We're going to have a quick moment of silence for Charlie, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to our topic today. Does anyone know what our topic today is? Yes. Why are gay people not in heaven? You can't be a proper disciple of Christ if we haven't taught you everything you need to know to be judgmental of other people.
That is a wild take. Brittany is usually pretty acidic. What I take away from that is, again, why didn't God protect Charlie? If Charlie, and this is for all of those Christians or anybody else out there, if Charlie was giving the good word of God, telling people to repent of their sins, accept Jesus into their heart, and be good people, why didn't God take care of Charlie? Why didn't God take care of Troy and stop it from happening?
Well, he was in the wrong group of Christianity, apparently, right? Because it's just the Mormons, and he was close, but yet not close enough. But that is the problem in Mormonism and in other religions as well. It's this gap of hypocrisy. And at the end of the day, the problem in religion is the house always wins. If it was at BYU, then it was meant to be. There was a bigger plan. We can see it. Now it's UVU. So apparently UVU is the lesser university. I mean, I'm not from Utah, so it's not my thing. It's just silly. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And for that, she really pinpointed it in such a sarcastic kind of little video. It's silly. It's really pathetic. The house always wins. So why are we even talking, right?
Yeah, everybody is wondering here whether Tyler really is an active member of the church. It's obvious that he was baptized at some point in time, but the church actually released a statement about that here. The LDS Church spokesperson said that the Tyler Robinson joined the church at a young age. So yes, they can confirm that Robinson became a member of the church at a young age. Let's hear about it.
I've been wondering if the church would make a statement about Tyler Robinson, and I finally found one posted a few hours ago in the New York Times. I'm just going to read it and let you guys decide what you think. The man suspected of killing Charlie Kirk became a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at a young age, according to a spokesman for the church. It is unclear if the suspect, Tyler Robinson, has been an active member of the church in recent years. I can confirm that Robinson became a member of the church at a young age, but refer any further inquiry about his church activity to him or his family, said the spokesman, Doug Anderson. What a way to distance yourself. Of course, he became a member of the church at a young age, at 8, like everyone who's raised in an active LDS family, the age of accountability. This makes it sound like it happened so long ago. They have no knowledge of him, no record of him. He was a member a long time ago, and they just can't comment now. I don't believe that's accurate, and it's a way to completely distance yourself from the situation.
At a young age seems highly disingenuous. And number two, why doesn't the church just confirm whether he is a member or not? Why can't they just say, yes, he's a member of the church? Why not take ownership of your people?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just like Doug Anderson, shame on you. Shame on you saying this vague, he was young. We all knew, I mean, the youngest is 8. Maybe he was later, then that's already weird in Mormonism. Maybe that was what he was hiding. I really don't know. I'm just making ideas up because it's weird how he made it so vague when he was young. We don't get baptized when we're babies. And then, yeah, exactly. That statement that how if you, Doug Anderson, can't figure out in a minute or two and going into some program if he was active or not, then you're not a professional organization. Then you should really ump your game. I'm just shame on him, honestly, shame on him.
And notice that this was not put out on the church's website, but was only released to the New York Times. Instead of taking ownership of it, they put it into the New York Times here. Now, I have a message here from one of from one of Troy's neighbors here. Utah community is stunned as quiet neighbor linked to Kirk's shooting.
Dave DeMille here with the USA Today Network. I'm in front of, we're in a normally quiet Washington City neighborhood. It's turned into the center of attention today. Police standing out guard outside this 2-story gray home just across the Virgin River from St. George. Reporters gathered across the street. There's a pickup truck and a Dodge Challenger parked in the driveway. Neighbors say they never suspected anything unusual. They've described the family as friendly and active in the church and school events. One longtime resident called the suspect quiet and smart. Others have described him as introverted. And many express heartbreak for the family and concern about the role that social media may have played in shaping the suspect's views.
You were saying that you feel like there must have been some turn recently.
There's had to have been whether it's social media or bad friends, I don't know.
You never talked politics with the family, or did you?
You know, in a Latter-day Saint community, we just don't talk politics because it makes contention. I don't care what you stand for. You know, whether you're a Republican or independent or Democrat, you know, we have our opinions and we pretty much keep the politics to ourselves.
Officers are keeping media separated from the house. They've also closed off the street. A number of people were driving through the street, taking photos with their cell phones from their cars. That's all happening here. We'll see what happens next.
So it looks like the shooter here is described as quiet and smart. And most people, is it true that Latter-day Saints generally don't talk much about politics? Did you find that to be a true statement?
I mean, in a way, yes, but I would even go further. Contention is of the devil. Mormons fear contention,
Right.
and that's the real problem. So we can't address, you know, if we're frustrated, if we're angry. I mean, that's also where this passive aggressive culture comes from. Mormonism can't cause Mormons. We have always this facade of like, no, we all love each other. We don't have problems. I almost, don't know what to do with it, but I'm good. And then we are surprised that it breaks out in the weirdest thing. I mean, that neighbor was so on. I absolutely agree with her, but it comes from something way more disturbing. And this is like the fear of contention, the fear that you give in to the devil and it takes over you. It's really not helping our people. It's just bad advice at this point.
Yeah, everybody is also wondering here about the motive naturally here, especially since it appears that the shooter was at least somewhat affiliated with MAGA and that he was a supporter, at least at one point in time, to Donald Trump, donated his campaign. What could the motive possibly be And this is, especially when you look at the shell casings, which we're going to talk about just a little bit more. And what I think the answer to it is perhaps there's a connection here between Troy's alleged assassin lived with a transgender partner. And this is what is a lot of people are saying that there could be a motive there, because Charlie Kirk is well known for being, I don't know how to put this diplomatically, basically being anti-transgender. I think that that's a fair assessment. He thought that the transgender wasn't even a real thing. He thought that it was all just a psychosis in people's minds. And since Tyler has a roommate who was transitioning from, I believe it was from a man to a woman, and that they were in a romantic relationship, if you link that with Charlie Kirk saying a lot of things about transgender people that could be interpreted as disrespectful or invalidating, then I think we're starting to get a little closer to motive. Am I going down the wrong path here, or is that, what do you think about that?
It's definitely on Mormonism, I would say, because think about it. We know a lot of we know when they have children who are outing themselves and they become knowledge of them, their daughters or their sons, to be part of the LGBTQ, that's when a lot of Mormons struggle with their faith. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot. So oftentimes it has to be somebody close to you. And even if he is in a romantic relationship or not, let's say it's just his really best friend, but he sees he's struggling, kind of like the Reynolds guy, right, from Imagine Dragon. He was just an ally because it was his really good friend, and he saw how much harm Mormonism did to him. So I think we all can relate to this. If it hits home all of a sudden, if it's somebody close to and dear to you and their struggle, and Mormonism does as much harm to our LGBTQ, then you can get really frustrated. Do we all, get a gun and do harm? No, but it builds up. And then as we talked just a second ago, you cannot talk about it, contention, who knows if he was able to talk at home. It's a toxic mix, let's say it this way.
Yeah. Now, the memes here are already coming out here. As soon as any celebrity dies, by the way, you start seeing the memes. And this particular meme here, which for those of you who are listening on Apple Podcasts, we go live every Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube. But if you're listening on Spotify, listening on Apple Podcasts, what are you seeing in this picture? And by the way, this was posted from a faithful Latter-day Saint called Zion Media here. And Joe Rollins, who does the Church of Korihor, says, come on, dude. But what only a Latter-day Saint can truly understand what is being said, I think, in this picture. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but what do you see from this picture?
I mean, to me, it looks like Mormonism wants to make this right in their head, right? I mean, we have lots, unfortunately, of those pictures, which like the founding fathers in a circle with Jesus Christ and other weird people. To me, it's honestly distasteful because we don't know. I think we shouldn't even pretend we know how. I mean, even if I, pretend being a Mormon, I would have not gone that far. That was always distasteful to me because I'm like, we don't know how Jesus will deal with good, bad, whatever people, because we don't look in their heart. So this to me is just distasteful. This like handshake, it's almost like the temple handshake, and he has temple clothing on, right? So it's just like too much Mormonism in this.
I just want to jump in there. See, what Charlie Kirk is eventually going to be baptized as a Mormon in their life. This is what these are getting to. Every time a celebrity dies, whether it's recently O.J. Simpson or whether it's Charlie Kirk or whoever, the Mormons are counting down the days until they can do his vicarious ordinances inside an esoteric Masonic multi-million-dollar castle. And I believe that the waiting period, I'm not sure, I believe it used to be a year, but I believe it is 6 months now. But somebody is going to do Charlie Kirk's temple work for him so that he can be a Mormon in the afterlife. And a lot of people find that to be very distasteful, which is why Joe, hey, I see you out there, Church of Korihor. Nice to see you in the program. That's why he tweeted this out. He said, come on, dude, that is distasteful. It is way too soon for that. And it is not, I don't think, like you said, it's something that we need to be talking about. Now, the big elephant in the room, I'll kind of save this. I've only got a couple of slides left here for you, is we are going to answer once and for all here, Jesse, whether Tyler Robinson and his family really are current members of the church. And this is somewhat breaking information here. But once again, Rebecca Biblioteca over there at the Mormonish podcast has done all of the homework for us. Tyler Robinson and his family are listed in a current LDS stake directory. That's a surprise.
There have been some questions recently on whether Tyler Robinson and his family were active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Are they Mormon? Were they Mormon? It looks like they were active in the LDS Church and then stepped away maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. But the question is, are they still listed on the rolls as members of the LDS Church? I recently got a screenshot from the Washington Riverside stake directory, and it looks like Tyler Robinson is listed as a member of that stake, as are his father Matthew, his mother Amber, and then 2 siblings who I won't name. So on the rolls, still members of the LDS Church, but according to other sources, not active.
Seems to be a pretty definitive confirmation, by the way, that they are still on the rolls of the church. And I just want to say one thing before I get your reaction to this. Tyler went to Pineview High School. Well, I, as a middle school / junior high student, I went to Pineville Junior High School. So, I mean, I'm from this area here. I taught at UVU for a number of years. I'm just seeing a lot of similarities between these particular families here. But I do find it pretty... I find it pretty remarkable that they're still on the church's rolls. This seems like a pretty good confirmation of that, wouldn't you say?
For sure. And again, here's the thing. Either you claim everybody as the church, the 17 million, then you have to really, take in all the inactives. Or you don't, then stop saying the church has 17 million members. So if you do that, then everybody is a church member and a Mormon. If you don't, and you retract from this and you start giving us the honest official members who are actually going every Sunday because they have the exact number, because we all know every Sunday the bishop's secretary is going through the rows and counting the numbers until they do it, then they're all Mormons, those 17 million members.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Rio for life. You're right. I stand corrected. It should, the new terminology, by the way, is less engaged, not inactive. That's technically what the church wants us to use for the verbiage. Now, the church also released, not only did they release the statement, but they also released basically op-ed pieces that talk about this, which is the church's way of responding to this in a non-official capacity. And I want to play this from the Deseret News here, which is the church-owned media here. It said one of Charlie Kirk's final interviews here. He said he called himself too big to ignore in an August interview with the Deseret News. Charlie interviewed in the Deseret News here. Watch reporter Brigham Tomko reflect on one of the last conversations that he had.
Asked people to interview Charlie Kirk 3 weeks ago. I wanted to talk to him because as the founder of Turning Point USA, he has become the face of the MAGA youth movement.
We want to save Western civilization, and we're not going anywhere. We want to be an institution in this country that is as well known and as powerful as the New York Times, Harvard, and the tech companies. And we believe we're creating that.
As I sat down with Charlie Kirk at his headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, my immediate perception of him was someone that was extremely passionate and confident in his mission, but someone that was also introspective and willing to change his views and also his tactics if he thought that there was a more effective way of reaching out to young people. He thought his broader goal would be to create an activist infrastructure that not just allowed for conservative victories at the ballot box across the country, but resulted in changed lifestyles among young Americans.
My job every single day is actively trying to stop a revolution. This is where you have to try to point them towards ultimate purposes and towards getting back to the church, getting back to faith, getting married, having children. That is the type of conservatism that I represent. I'm trying to paint a picture of virtue, of lifting people up, not just staying angry.
During my interview with Charlie Kirk, he chuckled and told me that he had become too big to ignore. And he had a point. Last year in 2024, his content on social media received 15 billion views, and 2/3 of Gen Z and millennial voters said that they saw his content. Charlie Kirk did not shy away from the fact that he was viewed by many as a polarizing and even an offensive figure. He said that this is just part and parcel of boldly speaking the truth, which he saw as his Christian calling.
Okay, so what I find, a couple of things. Number one, the church has a lot of solidarity and is basically shoulder to shoulder with Charlie Kirk on so many issues. Charlie was very, very anti-abortion. He was against a so-called gay agenda. he was against what he would call transgenderism. He was a big advocate for faith. He liked people to get married, having lots of children, conservative ideals. I mean, they're really, really similar in so many ways, which is why we see this kind of obituary video of Charlie, which kind of lionizes him. It's kind of a, like a eulogy that's very touching and very dear, and they want to lionize his memory. And especially since he spoke great things about the church and never said one thing disparaging about the church, then he's going to get the golden treatment from the church after he dies. That's very convenient for him, isn't it?
It is. I was almost surprised that they used the word controversial. I was like, oh, here's a little bit of like making it more nuanced besides just praising him. But that's the thing. What to me screamed out of this was this like excitement, how he is almost a missionary for conservatism. And that's exactly the problem. Missionary work in general, which I learned deconstructing as well, is like you force your ideologies on others. Even worse and harmful is on other cultures, telling them how to dress, how to wear, what to eat, that they're totally confused because that's not what it is to them. Learning to live in a nuanced world, to accept that others think differently, and it's not all about right and wrong. It's just being differently right. And this, like I said, this whole missionary vibe is disturbing to me. It's worrying me because I'm like, why do you always need others to see it your way? And that was his mission, like the Deseret News perfectly portrayed him as, where I'm like, but why? Why is it such an important thing for all those religions? Why can you not live and let live? And as long as we don't harm each other, I think we'll find, and there's enough countries, especially in Europe, who are almost all atheists, and they don't kill each other either. So it can't be religion.
Those are very, very good points. And I'm just going to, as we're wrapping things up here, if you can hit the like, hit the subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. If you can rate this on Apple Podcasts with a 5-star review, I would also appreciate that as well. Just want to give a couple last thoughts here on this entire week, which has been very captivating for me. I'm a big time news junkie and a big time Mormon news junkie. And this was the biggest story in Mormonism since the SEC fine a year and a half ago, I think. First of all, I don't agree with Charlie on almost any of the points that he makes about almost anything. Okay. So, but I what I would say is I salute his ability to go out in public and defend his views. This is a big difference from the cowards who run the Mormon Corporation, who never engage with anyone who could be a critic in any meaningful way. So Charlie was willing to at least go out there and talk to people on their own terms, and was willing to accept a lot of verbal abuse. And he also dished out a lot of very harmful rhetoric, in my opinion. He was very rude and condescending in the way that he approached many of the issues, and he had a very myopic take. However, no matter if we have any disagreements with someone from an ideological perspective, that does not justify violence against a person, even if that person is engaging in what could be considered hate speech. Your final thoughts here, Jessica, as we're wrapping things up on this incredibly turbulent week and the entire assassination here.
I absolutely agree what you just said about Charlie Kirk. I think I saw a couple of times where he was kind of schooled and he admitted, okay, I got this wrong. So in that matter, he is ahead of the Mormon Church, because we know from Elder Oaks, the church does not give apologies. And that is a huge issue, that they can't reflect, that they can't admit to harm, that they're not trying to make it better. Again, let's all focus on our side of the street. What did I do wrong? How can I turn down the heat? That's where we have to go. Doesn't matter if you, like you said, I don't need to agree with everybody, but can I be okay unless somebody's harmed? But can I be okay that some people live differently, have different ideas, have different morals? If we all don't harm each other, I'm absolutely fine with this. And this is how we can coexist together on this planet.
I really appreciate that. Thanks so much, Jesse, for coming on the Mormon News Roundup. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I would just like to tell everyone, always think celestial, and remember.
No unhallowed hand can stop the Mormon News Roundup from progressing.